All right, so let's talk about how to develop that glute med and the lateral plane. So one of the things we have to remember is that muscles work three-dimensionally. So they'll work in a front to back fashion. They'll also work in a lateral position, but then they work in that rotation. So this particular exercise is probably one of my all-time favorites for developing the lateral function of that glute med because it's such a heavy hitter for runners. It doesn't get that much attention, so it's often overlooked in its significance. And I'm trying to raise the awareness of just how valuable the glute med muscle is. So this is one of those exercises. So you can get a half foam roller or a foam block. That's really, really important. Partly because it provides it gives a little bit. So when you apply force, it creates a little bit more of a proprioceptive input, which also activate those muscles at a much, much higher rate than if you were just pushing against the wall by itself. That's more solid. So the hardest part about this particular exercise is actually just the setup, getting in position. So what you want to do is you want to get your feet wide enough, right? So we need to get into this inside stack position where the hip is inside the knee and the knee is inside of the foot. So we want to make sure that our feet are not narrow, but we have a wide base. So that's the first thing. We want to make sure that our toes are pointed straight forward. That's the next thing. And then what we want to do is we want to actually load the muscles so that through joint loading. So basically what we want to do is bend the knees. If you're standing straight up, right, that's the joints are in a locked position. So it gives a different neuromuscular feedback component, right, through the joints. So we want to bend at the knees, ankles, and at the hips. So that's important to remember. Then the next thing what we want to do is we want to reverse that curvature through the lower back so that we can position the pelvis the way we want to. So normally your curvature of your lower back goes forward. What we want to do is reverse that curvature and go backwards. And what that does is that creates a posterior pelvic tilt, okay? And so then that's really good. And now the last thing, we want to get your head and shoulders directly over your hips. And that's pretty much it. Again, like I told you, it's pretty tricky to get into this setup. Then you're going to put your left hand on the wall. And now what we're trying to do, we're trying to apply load or apply force through the right foot and ankle because I want to work this right hip. And so now what we want to do is we want to push laterally into this foam block. So both legs are actually applying force. They're just applying force differently. So this right side is where the force production is being generated. The left side is where it's just kind of stabilizing, but the forces have to equal out and match, okay? And the hand is on the wall so that you can create greater leverage with this right leg to trigger and activate that glute max. So really what we want the muscle to do is we want the muscle to activate at the right time, and then we want the muscle to activate it with the right amount of force. And the last thing we wanted to do is we wanted to control the joints. So basically this glute med is going to activate, and then it's going to also trigger and recruit some glute max, which is important. And then through that IT band attachment comes down through the hip, lateral side goes into the knee. So it's going to keep that knee externally rotated or turned out. The kneecap should be turned out and not collapse inside, especially once you apply force. And then it's going to also keep the ankle and the arch rolled out. All these are huge features that we must make sure that we involve in this movement to maximally train this glute med. So now what I'm going to do is as I apply force with this right leg, I'm going to take a little bit of force off of my left leg, but I'm going to then push that left leg out to the side or into that block. You want to lift that left leg up high enough just so you can slide a sheet of paper underneath. That will make sure that you're definitely recruiting all your force production from this right side. So here we go. So now what I'm going to do is lift this front leg. I'm pushing really hard into this foam block, and I'm pushing really hard with my right leg, and then I relax. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure I don't collapse through that knee or the arch or the ankle. I don't turn my toes out, and I don't lean forward excessively. So I want to really posterior rotate that pelvis, and then now I'm pushing. I'm really using this lateral glute med to apply force. I'm going to do 7 to 10 reps, and I'm going to hold my force for about 5 seconds. Again, reset those muscles, make sure I'm in the right position, and I'm applying force. So the key with this is we want to develop proper sequencing of the muscle. We don't want to just go all out. We want to go 30, 60, 90. So start with low force, work that way up to mid force. And then finally, we should use as much force as we can. So we really want to get this muscle to activate at the right time, at the right force, and then also control the joints in the right position. So that's really what we're trying to do with this position here. And so the hardest part of it is to just make sure you get set up in the right position. And then the next thing you really want to know if this muscle is working, if it's doing its job. A lot of times from an initial standpoint, you won't feel that muscle working initially. And so you'll feel like, oh, I feel my glutes or I feel my quads. That means you have too much weight shift forward. So you want to get your weight back a little bit to where you're level and then push through the entire foot. The other thing that you can do is when you're in this position, if you cannot connect the sensation of this muscle and feel it, just put your hand here, relax, and then push and apply force, and then you can literally feel the muscles tense underneath your fingers. And then now you know that, hey, I may not feel it just yet, but I am applying force in the right direction and that muscle is activating. So as you do that exercise, you will start to gain more control and feel that, and then it'll start to work the way we want it to.